Will you tell the American people to whom you lent $2.2 trillion of their dollars, $2.2 trillion of their dollars? Will you tell us who got that money and what the terms are of those agreements?
Hundreds and hundreds of banks. Any bank or that has access to the U.S. Federal Reserve's discount.
Tell us who they are.
No.
18 current and former Fed board members who held the top spots at the same banks and companies that were given emergency loans from the Fed.
It's against the charter for countries to be bailing out other countries. But they change the rules anytime they please to suit themselves. And this is what the people are angry about. When the IMF comes in, it's austerity measures for everyone except at the top.
Who gets all the benefits when you run a system like that where you're pretending to redistribute wealth? You serve the special interests and the powerful corporations. Then when you get into trouble, who gets bailed out? They get bailed out. Wall Streets and the banks get bailed out. And who gets stuck? It's the taxpayer.
The government gives taxpayer money as a bailout to the private banks that engineered the fraud to then lend the money to the government or to the pension fund that's now bankrupt, and then now those pension funds are even in more debt to the same bankers that engineered it. So to quantify this, we loan the banks the money that they then loan us back. I mean, this is fraud on top of fraud on top of fraud.
This is a raping of the taxpayer.
It's a Wall Street government.
And they're all working together. They're all working as a team. It's collusion. It's a racket. It's racketeering.
It's a Wall Street government.
And it's called fascism. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. Let's call a spade over here. The big guys are getting all the breaks, and the burden's falling on all of the people.
They've been behind every major crash in history.
Today, economists try to sell the idea that recessions and depressions are a natural part of something they call the business cycle. The truth is, our money supply is manipulated now just as it was before and after the Civil War.
And when you're moving trillions and trillions of dollars around the world economy every day, as this network is, you decide if it goes up or down. Nobody else does, you do. And therefore, you can create an economic collapse at will.
They make money out of financial terrorism. When these markets crash, they make billions.
It's the greatest bank robbery in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing. The people are not going to tolerate it.
Predator drones. You will never see it coming.
You wonder if the people beneath this drone in Iraq, insurgents according to the U.S., ever saw it coming either.
You think I'm joking?
But no one thinks a Hellfire missile dropped from a remote-control plane killing people is a joke.
The fact is that we are making more enemies around the world in these drone strikes and cruise missile attacks because we're killing a lot of civilians. For every quote-unquote bad guy that's killed, how many innocent civilians are being killed?
And they say, we'll kill 200 people to kill one bad guy, because they say it's a bad guy.
They told us in a crowded area, if one person shoots at you, kill everybody. And so people talk about, oh, these people killing American soldiers in Iraq, they're terrorists. Not terrorists, they're wearing sandals. And they got an AK. And they got 14-year-old boys building bombs to kill these American soldiers because we've killed their family.
The attack was supposed to be a key Taliban leader. Instead, as many as 90 civilians, more than half of them children, died. A UN investigation has concluded. The Pentagon continues to insist the dead were mainly militants, sticking to its claims that only 5 civilians lost their lives. It calls the attack legitimate and discards eyewitness accounts to the contrary as poor intelligence. This type of attitude has fueled anger against foreign troops.
Over 1 million innocent Iraqis died.
The biggest terrorist on the planet, without question, if we ask the Iraqi people and the Afghani people, is the United States of America.
We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. My government is now engaged in a massive war crime, killing hundreds of innocents. It's not just a war crime against the Palestinians, it's a crime against the Israeli people. And on behalf of thousands of Israelis that are demonstrating right now in the streets of Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, and in many other places, with Palestinians, with internationals, people from all kind of background and all parts of the Israeli society are completely ashamed and against this crazy assault.
Nothing to do with religion. This is not a religious conflict. Hundreds of years we've lived together without the United Nations or human rights groups to protect us. This has nothing with religion. That is a ploy, a false portrayal of the state of Israel and Zionism to legitimize what they're doing and to glean support from the world for their existence. Judaism is a religion, a spirituality to serve God, thousands of years old. Zionism is only around 100 years old. It is the transformation from religion to nationalism, to materialism, created by non-religious Jews who hated the religion, and they really didn't want with Judaism. They didn't even want to make their state in Palestine, only in Uganda at the first meetings. The reason they used the name Israel, the Star of David, hijacking, stealing the identity of Judaism and the Jewish people, is in order to get a legitimacy for their existence, that people should say, oh, it's God given to them, and that they should put fear and intimidate people from speaking up against their actions because they'll call them anti-Semitic. It couldn't be anything further from the truth.
But how can Israel claim self-defense when it bombs Gaza, which has no army, no air force, no navy, and has been under a constant blockade? How can Israel claim self-defense when its bombs destroy UN schools, killing children? The children of Palestinians and the children of Israel both deserve life. But the lives of the children of Gaza are cynically discounted as human shields. Massacres are being rationalized. Israel's moral high ground in Gaza, a growing pile of small bones in a graveyard. The administration knows Israel is using U.S. weapons paid for by U.S. taxpayers. Israel is using U.S. weapons paid for by U.S. taxpayers.
Those taxes are being used to commit mass murder. I don't agree to that.
More than 15,000 people died. And that's just conservative figures. About 50,000 tons of explosives were dropped on innocent civilians.
Is that the policies of America and Israel and Britain, through its endorsement of these policies, are acting with the most extreme example of terrorism. If we look at the actual definition of the word, who is being terrorized and who is carrying out the terrorism? The United States is number one.
We are told we are fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation.
Afghanistan is just as much a failure as Iraq, okay? We are using the same tactics. We are rounding people up, detaining them, bombing civilians.
And a bird's eye view to modern day warfare.
See all those people standing down there?
What you're seeing here is what Apache pilots with the U.S. Army saw as they flew over eastern Baghdad on July 12, 2007. A group of people walking. Included in that group, 2 employees for Reuters news service, 40-year-old Saeed Shmam and 22-year-old Namir Noor al-Din. Namir was considered one of the best photojournalists in Iraq. Their names were added to the video here by WikiLeaks for clarity as they carry their cameras, not what the pilots think they saw.
Hotel 26 is Crazy Horse 18 have individuals with weapons.
Moments later, they're attacked.
Light them all up. Come on, fire.
This van pull up and a man get out to carry away the body. Pilots see this man too as a threat.
We're trying to get permission to engage. 1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Clear. Clear.
It's later discovered there are 2 children inside the van. You can see them being carried away by soldiers trying to get them medical help. In an Army press release put out the next day, it says, quote, "There is no question that coalition forces were clearly engaged in combat operations against a hostile force."
Oh yeah, look at it.
I refuse to participate in the Iraq occupation.
The real enemies are not in some distant land. They're not people whose names we don't know and cultures we don't understand. The enemy is people we know very well and people we can identify. The enemy is a system that wages war when it's profitable. The enemy is the CEOs who lay us off from our jobs when it's profitable. It's the insurance companies who deny us health care when it's profitable. It's the banks who take away our homes when it's profitable. Our enemy is not 5,000 miles away. They are right here at home. If we organize and fight with our sisters and brothers, we can stop this war, we can stop this government, and we can create a better world.
Can the federal government take credit for saving us from a plot of its own creation? Tonight, has the federal government kept us safe, or does it just want us to think that it has kept us safe? It will tell you that the FBI, has foiled about 17 plots to kill Americans during the past 10 years. They were planned, plotted, controlled, and carried out by the federal government itself.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
The suspects, poor, illiterate African-American Muslims, were presented as the faces of homegrown terrorism and subsequently found guilty of conspiring and attempting terrorist attacks against the U.S.
No direction by a foreign entity or a terrorist group.
Instead, direction came from Shahid Hussain, a Pakistani immigrant on the FBI payroll, reportedly paid $100,000 for his services. According to court testimony, Hussain recruited the cash-strapped former convicts by offering cars and cash to carry out the operation.
4 individuals that sought to bomb Jewish facilities here in the Bronx and also take down a military aircraft in Newburgh.
Yet, not one defendant had a passport or license.
They lied to me on the murder of Pat Tillman. They lied to me on the rescue of Jessica Lynch. They lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And they lied about ties to Al-Qaeda. When you have someone in your lifetime in a period of 10 years that tells you a half a dozen major lies, it becomes difficult then when they do tell you the truth. How do you know you're getting the truth?
Our leaders lied us into invading Iraq and deceived us into occupying Afghanistan.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
McNamara comes through and now admits the Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened.
The Vietnam War and the push for U.S. involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie.
58,000 of my generation killed in Vietnam, 1 million Vietnamese over an event that never happened.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
A lie.
Here, here.
The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies.
What about Operation Northwoods?
Well,
tell us about what the military wanted JFK to do in Miami in order to get rid of Castro.
Well, the military wanted to use our CIA and the Joint Chiefs wanted to use our CIA and military to attack certain parts of the United States and make it look like Castro did it so that the country would get up in arms and support an invasion of Cuba.
There are declassified U.S. government documents like Operation Northwoods that ABC News reported on back in 2000. Operation Northwoods, Google it, and in there the U.S. government, an element of it said we want to hijack jets by remote control, crash them, and blame it on the Soviet Union and Cuba.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
The real value of a conflict, the real value of a conflict, is in the debt that it creates. Is in the debt that it creates. You control the debt. You control the debt. You control everything. You control everything. You find this upsetting, yes? But this is the very essence of the banking industry. To make us all, whether we be nations or individuals, slaves to debt.